Hello, travelers and explorers. Welcome to Reach the World's Explorer program. For over 20 years, Reach the World has inspired youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens through virtual exchange. My name is Tim, and I'm so glad you're joining us for today's special live stream event. More than 3,600 years ago, the volcanic island of Santorini in Greece basically exploded. As one of the largest volcanic eruptions in history, this powerful blast blew the center out of the island, sending rock high into the sky, creating a tsunami that impacted the weather as far away as China. At the time, the ancient civilization hardly knew what to make of that world-shattering event. And if we fast forward to today, where we know that the Christiana, Santorini, and Colombo volcanic group in the Aegean Sea, which is collectively known as the Hellenic Volcanic Arc. It's particularly hazardous because of what's happening far beneath the seafloor. And to better understand the history of volcanic eruptions in this region, the Hellenic Arc Volcanic Field Expedition Team will travel aboard the scientific drilling vessel JOIDES Resolution into the flooded caldera, or the center of that old volcano, on Santorini and on some other sites around there to collect rock and sediment samples containing over 3 million years of clues. It's pretty amazing, kind of mind-boggling to think of all of that. The coolest part of that, though, is that you and I get to go along for the expedition. Reach the World's virtual exchange with the expedition is just beginning, and we have a fantastic explorer named Sara aboard the JOIDES Resolution right now. And she's ready to show us everything that happens as it happens, beginning immediately, beginning now. But before we meet Sara, who is joining us live from Spain today, you might see her on the side of your screen already. I want to give a special welcome to the teachers and students around the world who are joining us live today or watching a recording of this event. And for our live audience, hello, I'm so glad you're here. I see some of you are already introducing yourselves. Please feel free to use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and of course, please share any questions you have for Sara as we go today, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. But without further delay, it is time to meet on board Education and Outreach Officer Sara Whitlock. Sara, welcome to Reach the World.
Hi, thank you. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Sara. I am a science writer most of the time, so I took a little break from what I do normally every day to come on board the ship for this expedition. But I figured I'd tell you a little bit about what I did before that and how I got to this place, because it's pretty cool to get to go on an expedition like this. It's kind of hard to join one of these crews, and I'm really grateful that I got to do it. But I got here actually by studying science myself when I was in grad school and in undergrad. So I loved science when I was in high school. I thought it was really cool to learn about the way that the world works through biology and through chemistry. So I went to college and I studied biochemistry because I thought, oh, I like both of those things. Let me just push them together. And then I went on to graduate school and I kept studying kind of the same thing. I looked at how bacteria keep their insides organized. But while I was doing that, I actually realized that I liked writing about science, maybe even a little bit more than I liked studying it in the lab. So I started doing that a bunch, and then that's how I got into a career as a science writer. So that's what I'm doing now. I also really, really loved reading books about pirates and reading books about the sea when I was growing up. So probably when I was about your age, I was doing a lot of that. And that made me see this expedition come along, and they were looking for somebody who could write about science and who could talk about it to come along and tell stories from the ship. So I volunteered right away because I thought that was really cool and because I wanted to get on a ship really badly. And that's how I ended up here today.
Amazing. What a cool path, career path. And it sort of put you on the cusp of joining this amazing expedition that I described briefly that's just about to set out. Can you give us sort of an overview of where you are right now and what you're about to do over the next few weeks?
Yeah, so right now we're in Spain. We're in a town called Tarragona that's a little bit away from Barcelona. You might have heard of that one. It's a little bit of a bigger city in Spain. Right now, we're just getting set up to go. So we're still tied up in port. We haven't left into the middle of the ocean yet. And we've been learning our way around the ship. We've been putting supplies onto the ship. And tomorrow morning, actually, we're going to leave and we're going to sail from Spain towards Greece. We're going to the island of Santorini that you probably heard in the introduction was our final destination. So that's the place that exploded quite a number of years ago, and that was a pretty bad explosion. That's actually the reason, that explosion, that the scientists want to go there and study more about it, because that explosion today would be probably even worse than it was back then. So we are trying to look and see from what we can see underneath the seafloor why the explosion happened and what we can do in the future to make sure that if it does happen again, we can get people to safety.
All right, what an interesting research topic. And I want to get more into how you can collect clues about something that happened so long ago. It's kind of hard to like picture how you could reach back and get clues from so long ago. But before we do that, I know you've just sort of finished the first leg of your journey. Can you tell us how you got from your home to where you are now?
Yeah, it was quite a trip. It probably took me a whole day to get from my home to Spain. So I took, as you might imagine, I had to go to the airport. I had to take a couple different planes to get to Spain. So I had to go to New York City because most of the big long flights take off from along the coast. So I went to New York City because that's pretty close to my home in Pittsburgh. And I took a plane overnight to get from New York City to Spain. And then from there, of course, I had to take a bus to the hotel. I had to actually spend 4 days in a hotel room without leaving at all. We did a quarantine for COVID because once you get onto the boat, there's only a couple people that do each job. So if everybody got sick all at the same time with COVID, that would be pretty bad. And then the boat, it might not be able to go where it needs to go. We might not have people to do all the different scientific jobs that need to get done. So we are really, really careful, and we quarantined for 4 days before we got onto the boat. And then once everybody did COVID tests and they came back negative, we got on, and that's where we are right now.
Well, I am very happy for you that you got on the ship in the first place after that long journey. Always sort of risky, picking up germs somewhere along that long journey, but I'm really, really happy that you made it. Sarah, I want to give you a sense of some of the classrooms and students who are joining us today so that you can just understand who's excited about following this journey. We've got Miss Turney's class from City Garden Upper Elementary joining us. We've got Miss Long's third graders from Boulder, Colorado. And we've got Mr. Luce's fifth grade class from Our Lady of Guadalupe School in Seattle. So we've got 3 classrooms who are watching live today. Beginning this sort of virtual exchange journey with you. And for those classes that I just mentioned, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you could put your questions in the chat for Sarah, we'll get through a couple of the things I want to cover first, and then we'll get as many of your questions as possible. I know we already have a question from Roxy in Miss Turney's class, and I'll ask that to Sarah in just a minute. But before we do that, Sarah, you had written an article about what it's like to pack and prepare for 2 months at sea. You're going to be on the JOIDES Resolution for 2 months. Can you just sort of go over that process for us? How much baggage could you bring? What do you think are the most important items to bring with you? What is something you didn't think you were going to have to bring, but you did end up bringing? Like, what's it like to pack for an adventure like this?
Yeah, it was actually a little scary to think about packing for 2 whole months, because once we're on the boat and we're out at sea, we can't get deliveries because, again, for COVID, we're not having people come and go from the boat, even though we're pretty close to land and it wouldn't be that hard for a boat to come meet us. We don't want to have people coming and going that might get us sick. So I had to think of what is every possible thing that I could need for 2 whole months. And that includes all the clothes that you might need. That includes any special snacks that you might want, that you might usually just be able to pop to the grocery store and get, but that the boat managers might not have thought to pack when they were planning for the meals that everybody was going to have on board. And I really like coffee, so it was important to me to bring some special coffee along just in case. A good cup of coffee always makes me happy. I'm trying to think what else I would bring. I had to bring my cameras and my audio gear because I do a lot of those types of things in my job at home, and I wanted to be able to do that here so I could get really good pictures to share with everyone who's following along. And I had to think about what books and entertainment I might want, because our internet connection is not always the best. You might be able to see a little bit of a lag even right here. So we don't get to stream movies and Netflix or even music and podcasts. So I tried to download as many of those things as I possibly could. And I didn't really think about having to download everything I might want until right before I left. So I was doing it kind of in a panic at the last moment.
And don't forget what for students might be the most important thing, the chocolate. Tell us a little bit about your planning around chocolate.
The chocolate, yeah, I usually eat a lot of chocolate. I don't like a lot of other types of candy, but chocolate is my very favorite. So I decided I didn't have a very big bag. So I think at some point you asked me, how big was my bag? How much could I bring? I brought a pretty big backpack. So this is, if you go camping at all, if you're familiar with backpacks for camping where you can carry your tent and your sleeping bag inside the backpack, that's the type of backpack I brought. So it's probably comes up almost to my waist when it's sitting on the ground. And I'm pretty tall. I'm about 5'7". So it's a big backpack, but it was just that one bag. So I could only fit one, it's kind of a 2-pound bag. So it's about this big of a bag of chocolate, about this size, of Kit Kats and Reese's. And then I brought 6 of the little kind of fancy chocolate bars that you can see at the grocery store. So I brought 6 of those, but I think I'm going to end up giving some of those away actually, because we're doing a Secret Santa. So hopefully none of them are watching this broadcast, but I think I'm going to give some of them away for our Christmas celebration.
Excellent. We've got some questions flowing in the chat. I want to cover some of those because they're great questions. Roxy in Miss Turney's class would like to know what kind of tools you will use while you're on expedition.
So a lot of people are going to use all different types of tools. Actually, one of the cool things about the boat is that it has, I think, 5 or something different laboratories on it. So we have chemistry tools, we have microbiology tools. Probably the coolest tool is our big drill. So I don't know whether you've seen pictures of the boat. If you haven't yet, I'll make sure those get up on our next article. We have a really tall tower on the boat that's called a derrick. And that contains our big drill that goes down to the bottom of the ocean. And so that's going to have a bunch of big pipes. It has some grinding heads at the bottom that will cut through the rock in case we need to get rock samples. We aren't always sure what we're going to find at the bottom of the ocean when we're trying to pull up those core samples. So we have to be prepared for all sorts of different things with different types of grinding, drilling heads, and different types of tubes that can go down and pick up our samples. So those are a few of the tools that we're going to use.
All right, great. And Sarah, maybe to help answer Roxy's question, you could give us a little peek outside your window and just give us like a good sense, because we could see the JOIDES Resolution, at least from the outside.
Yeah, so down here, you can see some of those big pipes. So those big pipes down there are going to go down to the bottom of the ocean floor. And they're going to do that through this big tower. You can only see a little bit of it, but the big yellow and white part that goes way up over there is part of the tower that holds those pipes before they go down to the ocean, because it has to be assembled vertically before we can send it down to the ocean floor. So those are a couple of the tools. And actually, we can also see another tool. Over here, you can see the bottom of our crane. So our boat has a big crane on it, because when we need to load all of our supplies, they're really, really heavy. And so instead of having people try to carry each box up really slowly and maybe hurting their backs or something like that, we have the crane that lifts everything on for us, which is really convenient.
Can you give us an example of something that the crane has been used to load in the last couple of days? I can see from on the side of your frame there that you're still in port, you're still next to land, and there's some activities with cars, and it looks like there's a lot of activity.
Yeah, there is a lot of activity. There's been a lot of workers kind of going up and down the gangplank too, with the little way that we use to get onto the boat. And one thing that I saw getting loaded onto the boat the other day was a big case of Coca-Cola. So you can imagine that sometimes we're going to want to drink soda while we're on the boat, and we have to have cases and cases of it, and probably of the syrup too, the kind that comes out of your soda fountain. So I definitely saw that coming up. I saw some juice coming up, some milk. It's been a lot of different things.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Sarah, thank you for showing us out your window. We're going to see a lot more of the ship over the weeks to come. So, Roxy, to help answer your questions, we're going to go into the labs and we're going to see the drill in action. We're going to see all the things that the ship is doing once it gets to Santorini. And I know Sarah, as a science communicator, is especially excited to show you that because those tools are very cool. Sarah,
Yeah.
moving along to our next question, Erin would like to know, like, approximately what date did your adventure start? When did you leave the US?
I actually left a week ago today. So I left last Thursday, kind of in the middle of the day, and I didn't get to Spain until the morning to mid-afternoon of the next day.
All right, very good. A great question from Alex in Mr. Lewis's class. He would like to know if you know how you're going to get fresh water on the boat, fresh water for drinking.
That's a really good question. I don't know all the details yet, but I do know that the boat is able to do its own water filtration. So we have a way to purify our own water. I'm not exactly sure how that works yet, but that's a really good reminder so that I can tell you on the next video more details.
Fantastic. Yeah. If you could investigate that for us, I'm curious to know too, because water is so important and you are going to be in the sea of salt water. Fantastic. Oh, the questions are really rolling in here. So let's keep it going. Let's see here. Connor was wondering, what is your favorite thing to write about as a science communicator?
Oh, I really like to write about space. That's my very favorite thing to work on. So I like to write about things like how did ice get onto the moon, or things like what happens if a fire breaks out on a spaceship. I just finished up a podcast about that. So yeah, anything about space is great.
Fantastic. Yes, I'm sure a lot of everybody who's watching is also interested in some of those same questions too. Carter is wondering what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Oh, I had some funny different things that I wanted to be. When I was really little, I wanted to be a firefighter and I wanted to drive a purple pickup truck. And then after that, I thought I wanted to go to art school for a while. And I was really excited about making drawings and paintings and things like that. And then I thought I was going to be a research scientist. And so that's how I ended up going to grad school. So I think where I ended up as a science writer, except for maybe firefighting, I haven't done any of that as an adult, but I've done a little bit of art stuff as a science writer and a lot of science, as you might imagine. So I kind of combined those things.
Fantastic. That's going to really come in handy during this virtual exchange when you are meeting all of the scientists who are doing their field work on JOIDES Resolution, and we can talk to them and you can help us understand what they're doing. I'm looking forward to that myself. All right. Helen would like to know how many people are on the expedition team?
We actually got an email about this the other day. There are 115 people total on the boat, but only 30 of them are actually from the science party. So that's the scientists and me. Everybody else works for the company that helps us to run the ship.
Okay, so big crew that has to sort of operate the drill, keep the ship on track. Do all the things you need to do to maintain a ship. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Ooh,
all of us scientists don't know how to drive the boat, so we have to have people to help us to drive around the ocean.
Takes a big team with lots of skills to pull off an expedition like this. It'll be fun to meet more of them in the weeks to come. All right. Erin would like to know what your favorite chocolate brand is.
Oh, that's such a hard question. I'm actually not sure what this brand is called, but there are these candy bars in the grocery store that are called Forest Mint. And I think it's one of those rainforest type of groups that give some money back to conservation in the rainforest. And I think that's wonderful. I'm glad that they're doing that, but also the chocolate is really good. I love mint chocolate.
Yes, who doesn't? That sounds delicious right now. All right, we've got a couple questions from Roxy. Roxy would like to know if the drilling at the bottom of the caldera in Santorini will hurt any of the wildlife, and what sort of precautions might be in place to make sure that the drilling isn't going to negatively affect that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we definitely want to make sure as scientists that we're not doing more harm than we are doing good by learning about the environment. We do a kind of an environmental review process. So basically the scientists gather a big group of other scientists and other people with expertise about the environment to make sure that they're thinking about all those things. And all of those people together have to make the decision that each site that we're drilling is okay. And sometimes if it's the home for a group of animals that are particularly in danger, we actually don't drill there. We move somewhere else that we think we can answer the same questions. And one kind of funny thing, and I'll maybe make sure I send you guys a link, is that sometimes there are other animals that are just swimming through the ocean and the drill doesn't bother them. It is all encased so they can't hit something and like get hurt. But we did have a squid run into the drill pipe one time, and there's a funny video of that. He was fine, but it was really funny. In the big ocean, he still managed to run into the drill, but he got to swim away just fine.
That is an unlucky squid of the whole vast ocean to run into the skinny drill pipe going down. But I'm glad the squid is okay.
Yeah.
Great question, Roxy. Very good question. All right. So another question we have has to do with safety. And I wonder if sort of like building on that question, have you had to do anything to prepare yourself for possible safety situations or to know what to do in the case of a bad storm or some sort of accident on the ship that you would have to take safety precautions for?
Yeah, that is a really good question. Actually, we just today had a drill to practice what we're going to do if we need to get onto our lifeboats. So we have 4 big lifeboats on the ship that can each hold about 70 people. And we have all of this special safety gear that we take with us when we get onto the lifeboats. So we have these funny looking suits that zip all the way up and they have a hood and they're made out of some kind of plastic that's waterproof and they keep you warm if you fall into the ocean. So we grab that, we grab our life jackets, we grab hard hats and even safety glasses. And we all assemble in a certain area if it's a bad storm and we think we need to abandon the boat for some reason. So we were practicing that for sure. And we also learned what to do if we see someone fall overboard. We have a whole system in place. If someone falls overboard, that the person who sees them maintains eye contact with them the whole time, keeps pointing to them in the water so that they can't get lost until everybody else can come and pull them out of the water. So yeah, we're practicing a lot just to make sure. I hope we don't run into any of those situations, but if we do, I think everybody on board will be ready.
That is very good to hear. It's very reassuring. Let's see here. What other questions can we bring in here? Carter would like to know if you have any siblings.
I don't have any siblings. I'm an only child, but I do have a lot of first cousins. So it's a good other thing.
All right. Yes. Good to know. Good question, Carter. Erin would like to know what's the most interesting you have learned since starting your sort of path as a science writer?
Oh, it's hard to pick just one thing, but I think I'll tell you something fun that I learned recently when I was learning about fires in space. And that's actually that all fires in space, for the most part, happen on places where humans are living because most places in space don't have a very high oxygen content. So they don't have the stuff that's in the air we breathe. And that oxygen is key for fires to start. So if there's a fire in space, it doesn't happen the way that it happens in Star Wars or other space movies. It really only happens inside the spacecraft. And I thought that was really crazy because I had never thought about it before.
Interesting fact. Yeah, very, very interesting. All right. Stella would like to know if you know what type of squid ran into the pipe.
Oh, that's a great question. I think it was a giant squid, but I'm not sure its exact species name. It was a big squid. So I could look that up, but it was a very large squid.
Yeah, I think now that you've raised it, I think we're going to have to show the video if at all possible. If that exists and we can share it, it would be great to be able to post that. Because now I'm also very personally interested in seeing the squid run into the pool. It sounds like one of those videos where someone's walking down the sidewalk and they're on their phone and they run into a telephone pole or something.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Students, thank you so much for these great questions. Keep them coming. We can answer a couple more of them. While you're thinking of some more, I wanted to ask Sara a question. You have joined, you said there were 30 some other members of the science team on the ship now, getting ready to go on this 2-month-long expedition. Can you tell us what kinds of scientists are on the science team? I know that not everybody does the same thing. Everyone's going to be sort of contributing in a different way. Like, preview some of the people or jobs that we might hear about and learn more about.
Yeah, and I can actually show them to you if you want. I have all their pictures on the wall right behind me, so I can give you a
Yes,
little
that would be
view of
great.
that, and we can talk about. So this, here, let me make sure my hands are in front of the camera. This is all the scientists who are on our trip, and some of them are they're in their graduate studies still, so they're still in like the last stages of school, and others of them have been working on this for a really long time. So you can see some of their job titles under here. We have people who are measuring the physical properties of the core, so they're taking a lot of different measurements of like what might be in here. We have people who are studying the sediments. We have people who are, let me find somebody who does a different job. They're studying the things that are inorganic, so the things that don't come from an animal or a person. We have some people who describe the core. Let me see whether I can find one of them. Of course, they're going to run away now, but they describe the core so that when they see all the different layers of dirt and rocks that are coming out, they talk about what each of those layers might be, and they're particularly looking for pieces from volcanic eruptions. So that's called tephra, and those are what they're really interested in because they're trying to study, how many times have the volcanoes exploded and kind of what made that happen. So that's the layers that the core describers are going to be really interested in looking at.
Fantastic. And that's where we'll get into like those clues and these cores from the bottom of the caldera that really like tell us something exciting, I'm sure, about what might have happened so long ago. How cool. All right, more questions in the chat. Kellen would like to know what would happen if there was a COVID outbreak on the ship.
Yeah, we have a couple cabins that are actually quarantine cabins. So if one of us does get sick, we'll have to go and isolate ourselves in this little bitty cabin until we get a couple tests back that are negative. We take tests right now every single day so that we hope if somebody does start to get sick that we'll catch it really fast before they have a chance to give it to someone else. We really don't want to have to quarantine on the ship because most of our cabins don't have windows. So if you do end up having to quarantine in the cabin, you're stuck inside for quite a long time. But people have done it and they've made it out just fine.
You've had a couple of days now to sleep on the ship, even though it's not at sea yet. You are like on the ship, living on the ship. What is it like for you? I don't know how much time you've spent living on a ship before, but what is it like to sleep on a ship?
Yeah, this is my first time ever sleeping on a ship. And it was a little crazy. The first night I was so tired, I didn't notice anything. I just went to sleep right away. And the second night that I slept on the ship, I could tell it was moving a little bit. So I ended up making a little pillow fort on the edge where I was afraid I was going to fall off to kind of wedge myself. Also, our bunk is a little bit slanted right now. So I wanted to make sure I wedged myself in tightly. But once I figured that out, it was actually pretty nice, a little bit of rocking.
It will be interesting to ask you that question again once the ship hits the open sea and starts moving, what it's like to sleep on a bed that moves.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about that, but we'll figure it out.
Fantastic. We'll definitely follow up on that. Mateo is wondering if you knew when the JOIDES Resolution was built.
Yeah, it was actually built in 1978 as a vessel that drilled for oil. But then when we got it, when the scientific organization got it, they did a big conversion so that it doesn't drill for oil anymore. It drills for our cores. And that I think was in 1984. So it's been at it for quite a while. Actually, in a couple of years, we might try to get a new boat. But right now, this one is going really strong.
All right, very good question. All right, thank you, Mateo. Helen would like to know if you have met the captain and if you have met the expedition leader or the principal scientist, and if you could tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time talking with the principal scientists. So we have two of them because we actually do work all day. So we do 24-hour work. So we have two principal scientists. I talk with them a lot. And we have somebody who's called the expedition project manager. And that person is responsible for making sure everything is kind of going the way that it should and making sure that all of the scientists know what they're supposed to be doing and how they should be interacting with the boat's crew. I haven't actually I've seen from a distance the captain of the ship, but he's been pretty busy on board, doing his captain things. I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times and he seems very nice. But I'm hoping that soon I will go up to the bridge to get a tour and ask some of my boat questions.
Excellent. And just before we went live, you and I were talking about one of the important jobs on a ship, other than a captain, the bosun. Can you tell us really quickly, like who or what a bosun is and what they might be doing at this phase in pre-departure or as you prepare to sail?
Oh, are you talking about the people?
Yeah,
What?
the bosun who is sort of like the coordinating the arrival of supplies and getting
Yes.
the ship ready to depart.
Yeah, so that person right now is making sure that we have enough of all of the stuff that we're doing, and so that we have every supply that we're going to need. So that might include everything from our food to our toilet paper to just everything you might need to live your life. And they're really busy right now. So they're going to give me some more updates on everything that we brought on board in a little bit.
All right, very good. Connor would like to know if the JOIDES Resolution has a submarine to observe things underwater.
You know, we do have a couple little robots that we can drive around to see what's going on. We use them to watch the drill because it goes quite a ways down into the ocean. So the drill itself doesn't actually have cameras on it. So if we need to see why it got stuck or make sure that everything's okay, we can use those little robots. But they're not ones that people get in. They're just little bitty ones that we can drive with a remote controller.
Okay, very good. Kellen would like to know approximately how big the JOIDES Resolution is. And I can sort of just preface your answer by saying we uploaded in your first article on your Reach the World Journey homepage a photo you shared that sort of shows a map, an illustration of the JOIDES Resolution with some of those dimensions on them, and it gives you a sense of how big the drilling derrick is. But for you, being on the ship, how big does it feel? Like, how does it feel to be on a ship of that size?
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you see the measurements and numbers versus how it actually feels on board. Because I think, I saw something like it's only 70 feet wide, but it feels really big. There's a lot packed into that amount of space. So it feels like, I'm trying to think, almost like if you put a school onto the water, even. Like it's got a bunch of different levels. There's probably 5 different levels that we go up and down between all the time. So I'm going up probably 3 or 4 different staircases every time I want to get somewhere. So it feels like I have a lot of space to spread out. And even my cabin, I could probably lay down, 2 times across the cabin, one into another. And I thought it was going to be like a closet, but I can actually spread out. I could probably do yoga in there. So it feels pretty good. And we have a helicopter pad on the back where helicopters can land. And so we can go on runs around that. And that makes it feel bigger, I think, than it would otherwise.
All right, very good, very good. Jason would like to know if you have ever seen an underwater volcano before.
I have not. This is going to be my first time. I'm not sure I'm really going to get to see them, but I will get to see hopefully what they spewed out, as they erupted over time.
Do you have, this is sort of following on a question that Aaron had, that Carter had about whether or not you had a favorite underwater volcano. Do you know of other areas of the world that have underwater volcanoes? Is this area particularly unique? Like what is so like interesting and exciting about these underwater volcanoes?
Yeah. I don't know whether I have to say I feel like these are my favorite underwater volcanoes just because I get to study them so much more than the other ones. But one thing that's really cool about these in particular is that there's quite a lot of them close together. So we've talked a lot about Santorini, but there are actually 2 other underwater volcanoes that are neighbors. And they're probably interrelated in the sense that like probably the same things that made one explode could make the other one explode. But they're called Christiana and Colombo. And so that's one of the reasons that the scientists here want to study them, because some of them might be working together when they explode, or they might be separate. So we're going to learn more details about that. And a lot of times you would have to travel really far to be able to study different underwater volcanoes. So it's pretty cool that these ones are neighbors.
Very good. Aaron would like to know if you have a sense of how deep underwater the drilling will begin. Once you get to the caldera, like how far down will the drill have to go before it reaches the sediment and the rock at the bottom of the caldera that you're going to want to start bringing up core samples of?
Yeah, we're actually really lucky on this expedition that because we're going to be close to land, we don't have to go down very far. You can kind of think of like in your swimming pool, when you get close to the edge, it starts to curve up. And that's a little bit of a simple way to think about the bottom. Obviously, the bottom of the ocean is more complicated than that, but as you go up towards land, the bottom of the ocean does kind of go up to the surface. So I think, and I'll have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to have to drill more than like 1,000 meters down. And for context, we can drill 5,000 or 6,000 meters down in other parts of the ocean when we're going all the way down to the seafloor. So it's not going to be very deep on this particular mission, which means we can do it fast. And that's exciting for the scientists to get their samples quickly.
Yeah, that's not very deep compared to what the JOIDES resolution could do, which is very, very deep. Great. Helen is wondering where the supplies and food are stored within the JOIDES resolution.
That's a really good question. And to some extent, I'm not sure I've been to the places where we store the food yet. I've heard about all these different really big storage containers where they store pieces of the pipe that we drill for. And those are all kind of in the part of the ship where the crew mostly goes. They want us to kind of stick to our science areas so that we don't get in the way. It's not like they want to hide anything. They just want to make sure that, they can get to and from all of their areas easily. So I haven't seen where they store the food, but I know that there are big storage lockers that they put everything in.
Okay, I can imagine those lockers would have to be very large to feed 100 people, more than 100 people for more than 2 months. That's a lot of food and supplies.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense, and this question is coming from Savannah, if you might become seasick once you start traveling across the Mediterranean? I think we're worried for you on that sense.
I was a little worried too. I came onto the ship really confident that I was not going to get seasick at all. And within the first 20 minutes that I stood on deck, I felt a little wonky, not terrible, not like I was going to throw up or anything, but just a little like, ooh, I can tell it's moving and I don't know whether I like it. But that went away pretty fast. I did worry a little bit, so I took one seasickness pill, but then since then it hasn't come back. So my plan is tomorrow when we're going to set sail, I'm going to take another seasickness pill. And I hope that my body will adjust. Usually, from what I've heard from other people, you adjust pretty quickly. And most people don't stay seasick for more than a day or two, even if they do get really sick.
All right, good. Well, I hope that continues to work for you. We'll be monitoring you closely. We're here that you're feeling good and enjoying this experience. Alex would like to know if you have sort of a favorite marine animal that you're excited to see while you're at sea, possibly, swimming alongside the ship or in the caldera.
Yeah. Oh, this is probably a lot of people's favorite marine animal, but I really want to see some dolphins. And I think there's actually a pretty good chance that we might, because we're going to be in kind of shallower water. There's a better chance that we might actually get to see some of them. So I'm really excited about that. I would love to see a squid also, but I don't know whether we're going to have our little robots running around in the ocean when the squid are nearby.
All right, very, very good. Hopefully if you see a dolphin, you can snap a short video for us so we can see it too. That would be so cool to be able to live through your eyes. Let's see here. Carter would like to know if you know how to swim.
I do. I really want to learn to surf a little bit better. I grew up for the first half of my life living in the San Francisco area. So I got to do a lot of like swimming, at least in like waves on the beach in the ocean. So I do really like to swim.
Do you think when you're living and working on a boat like the JOIDES Resolution, you'll be on the boat the whole time, right? You won't get a chance to swim, just to clarify.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't get to swim while I'm on the boat. We do get off the boat on Crete, which is, a bigger island that's off the coast of Greece, the mainland. So maybe on the night that I get to stay there, I might get to go for a swim. But it is going to be winter because it is going to be February when I get off the boat. So I don't know whether I'm going to want to swim at that point.
Fantastic, Sarah. Well, we're sort of in the final few minutes of our time with you today. It is for students who are following along. As Sarah told us, she is in Spain right now. And she is going to be studying sail. I say sail, but it's a boat that's propelled by an engine. She's going to be going into the Mediterranean tomorrow and really embarking on this expedition. But because she is a couple time zones ahead of us, it is getting later in the evening for her, and we want to make sure and let her sleep. So we may do one or two more questions before we say goodbye. The good thing is that Sarah's going to be coming back several times over the next few weeks to give us updates, answer our questions, tell us more about what's happening aboard the JOIDES Resolution. One of the final questions I wanted to ask, because it's such a good question, Erin would like to know if you know what JOIDES stands for. Is it an acronym, or how did it get its name?
You know, I do. It's actually on the wall right next to me, which is why I'm looking over this direction. But it's named JOIDES because of the Joint Oceanographic Institutions for Deep Earth Sampling. And it's called Resolution because they named the boat after, I don't know whether you've heard of Captain James Hook, who was on the HMS Resolution. So they took that part of the name and the acronym of the group that runs the boat and put them together.
Right, very good. Good question, great answer. Students and teachers, fantastic questions today. I can tell that the interest is super high in where the JOIDES Resolution is going next, what they're going to discover, who Sarah's going to meet, and the story she's going to share with us over the coming weeks. So I'm so excited to get this virtual exchange started. For classrooms and teachers who signed up recently, the expedition flags are expected to arrive today, and I'm going to mail them out as soon as I get them, so you can hang them in your classrooms and send us pictures and show Sarah how you're following along and following her story. Maybe a good place for us to stop today is a final question from Roxy, which is a really good question because students, especially in the US, are preparing for a holiday break from school, a winter break where they're going to have some time off, hang out with their families, and you are not going to be home with your family. Are you going to be sad about not being with your family for the holidays?
You know, I'm going to be a little bit sad because this will be the first Christmas I haven't spent with my family, but we did do a Christmas earlier. We did a really early Christmas in November before I left. And so I know that they're going to be thinking about me on Christmas. I'm going to be thinking about them, and we're going to have a big celebration on the boat too. So that'll make me feel better. I have lots of friends around me here on the boat, so I'll get to celebrate with them.
Amazing. You got your presents early and you get to go on an adventure. I'd say that's a pretty good combination.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, thank you so much. It's been so much fun answering all these student questions, getting to know you better and understand where you are and what you're about to do. But that's all the time we have for today. And students and teachers, as Sarah told us, she's about to set sail for Greece starting tomorrow. And I don't know about you all, but I'm so excited to see what she does next, who she's going to meet aboard the JOIDES Resolution, and what this amazing expedition team is going to discover when they arrive in Santorini and start this incredible search for some ancient clues beneath the seafloor. So be sure to visit the virtual exchange homepage for the Hellenic Arc Volcanic Field Expedition. The link to that is just further up the chat in the YouTube window. You'll find it there. It should be right at the top. You'll find an article there from Sarah where she shares some pictures about her packing process and what she actually put in that bag that she described to live and work on a ship for 2 months. So lots to see there, and there will be many more articles to come over the course of the next few weeks as we continue to connect with Sarah and learn more about this incredible expedition. So Sarah, it's going to be time for you to go to bed soon. We really appreciate you joining us today. Safe travels across the Mediterranean Sea. And on behalf of all the students and joining us live and the students who are going to be watching this recording later this week, thank you so much. We're so excited to follow you and see what comes next.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to go on this trip with you all.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Until next time, see you later. Bye, everyone.